Hello, welcome to a Team SNG test hands video. Today we are going to be doing the test hands for the Ogdoadic Lair deck profile that was featured on the channel earlier this week. While I got attention, I'd like to ask you guys, leave us a like, leave us a comment, leave us a subscribe, and make sure you hit that bell icon so that you don't miss any notifications about future uploads from this channel. Much like next week, we're doing a pure Ogdoadic variant. If you're interested to see what they can do without relying on Lair of Darkness, tune in next week. What I like about this deck is its ability to go first and go second. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to do two going first test hands because I actually really think it's got a lot of going first potential, and we will do two going second test hands. Now these test hands are going to be a little long because some of the combo lines are a little convoluted, let's say. That being said, let's get into it. Alright, so for our first test hand, we'll go first. Drawing 5 cards, let's see what we can do. Alright, so we have our Lair of Darkness. We have Flogos, probably not the most optimal card to see, but it's always not bad if you want to use it as like pitch fodder. Trade in, okay, so now we are hoping to see one of our level 8s. Super Poly, again, not a terrible option to see. And Naoya. So that's a bit unfortunate, but it's not the end of the world because we do at least have our Lair of Darkness, and we can start to set our graveyard up with our Naoya and our Flogos. So actually what we're going to do first is we will send our Naoya to grave, and send from our deck to the grave a light reptile in our Kierce. Now we can normal summon our Flogos and tribute him off for our Kierce. And when our Kierce is special summoned, he will special summon our Naoya. And our Naoya will now search us out a Ogdoadic spell or trap. So in this case, we're going to search out our Ogdoadic Water Lily. Our Water Lily is then going to also be really useful to us because we can, well, activate our Water Lily and send from our deck to the grave our Ogdoadic Queen. Now, Queen is definitely the better option here just because of the way that we've sort of opened. At this point, we're going to actually tribute off our Kierce and our Naoya for our Ogdoadic Queen. And then we are going to use, at the end of our turn, our Arima to just add to our hand our Lair of Darkness, which will then activate. And we'll get no tokens this turn, which is perfectly fine. We don't actually need the tokens. It's more the changing everything to dark side of Lair of Darkness that is valuable to us. And then we will set our Super Polymerization. And on our opponent's turn, once they have 2 monsters on the field, we can activate Super Poly, sending both of them to the grave. At the cost of our trade-in for our Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. The benefit of that is because a card was sent to grave from our opponent's side of the field, we'll also get to send another card from our opponent's side of the field to grave. So if our opponent had 4 cards on field, we could potentially use Super Poly, and instead of going into Starving Venom Fusion, we could go into our Predaplant Trifavertum instead. And then we could remove that 4th and final pesky card with our Queen. Or we use 2, and we remove that 3rd pesky card with our Queen instead. So it was a bit unfortunate. We did sort of end up with a bit of a bum hand. there, but as you can see, we could still get our boss monsters out onto the field with relative ease. So this time we're going to go second, and we're going to show how the deck breaks a board. So this time we've opened Absolute Bee's Knees, which is really nice. We've opened the Arena, which will get us to our Lair of Darkness, which will then be really useful as we'll get to tribute stuff off of our opponent's field to really give ourselves a power boost. So first thing first, let's do that. We'll send off our Arena for Lair of Darkness. Now, I want to be a little careful with Lair of Darkness because I don't want too many tokens on the field at the end of my turn, as realistically, I'd like to use the tokens. I have a play here in mind that will let me set up a very interesting interaction, which we'll talk about in just a moment. At this point, we're going to actually use our Snake Rain. And we're going to send to grave at cost our Queen. And then from our deck, we're going to send 4 reptiles. Now, we have Nunu in hand, and we have Zoha already in our hand. So, what we're going to actually want to send is a King, a Nauya, a Kierce, and the Overlord. So these 4 are going to hit the grave for us, and we'll keep them in this order for now. Now what we'll do is we're going to actually send our Nunu to the grave to send from deck to grave a Aliart. Not that Aliart's really important at this point, but it could be useful. Then we'll activate Nunu's effect to special summon Nunu, and we will tribute Nunu off for Kierce. Now do be aware this does let your opponent summon something from their grave. However, their monster will have its effect negated, but now you will not. So when Kierce hits the board, your opponent special summons something, and then because Kierce was special summoned, you actually special summon your Nauya. Now your Nauya goes off, letting you search out Ogdoadic Water Lily. At this point, you want to count your graveyard just to be sure you got 4. 3, 4. So we have 4 reptiles right now. At this point, what we're going to do is we're going to actually tribute our Nauya for our Aliart. And Aliart will then put Nauya and Nunu back in our grave, giving us 5 back in the grave already. Now we're going to activate our Ogdoadic Water Lily, which is going to now act as a Monster Reborn and a Foolish Burial. So there's only one card we don't have in the grave already, which is our Flogos. So we're going to send our Flogos to grave. And we're going to actually start off by special summoning from our grave Ogdoadic Queen. We already have tribute fodder on board for our Ogdoadic King and for our Overlord. So we now only have to make decisions about how we would like to go about this. The way that I'm going to play this is actually to summon my Zoha. And this is the normal summon for the turn. So we've done all this without normal summoning once. And we're going to tribute off our Zoha and our Kierce for our Ogdoadic King. Zoha will then go off. And this is what I mean by you have an interesting interaction with Zoha, King, and Queen. Zoha will now go off. And that will make your opponent draw a card, which will trigger your King to make your opponent randomly send a card from their hand to the grave. You will also search, with Zoha, you get to search a Ogdoadic monster. So we're going to search out another copy of Nauya, the Ogdoadic Remnant. And the reason we're searching out Nauya is just because of the fact that Nauya will send a Nunu, and then we have Nunu for next turn. So we've managed to search out our Nauya. Our opponent has now sent a card, added a card to their hand, and then has now drawn a card. Now both of us have to send a card from our hand to the grave. So actually, we're going to send Nauya to the grave, because it doesn't really help us in the hand. our opponent will then also discard a card. No. So yeah, our Zoha will now make our opponent discard a card. Once that chain resolves, our king will also make our opponent randomly discard a card because they added a card to their hand. So now our opponent has drawn 1 but discarded 2, meaning they've gone -1. If either of the cards discarded was a monster, our queen will actually special summon from our grave our Ogdoadic, the Overlord. This here should be an OTK at this point, but you could solidify it by tributing off your king. The other option is to set your Ogdoadic Hollow and activate Lair of Darkness. And if you haven't beaten your opponent here with what's on the field, on your next turn, you can actually do a lot of this all over again. You activate your Ogdoadic Hollow to tribute something off your field and special summon something from your opponent's graveyard, which will make room for your queen to send something off the field because something was special summoned from your opponent's graveyard. So, you can send off anything that's giving you a bit of trouble. Then, because a card was sent from your opponent's field to the grave, your king goes off, letting you search out another card, which again is a really nice plus. Then if at any point during the turn your opponent sends something from the hand to the grave, or sends a monster from the hand to the grave, well, you can bring back your Zoha. And then you can have the whole little interaction with your Zoha again, where you get to search out a monster, put that monster in the grave, and just keep going that way. So as you can see, this deck does have a lot of capability to play and do some interesting stuff that puts your opponent on their back heels. Super Polymerization. Nunu, Ogdoadic Water Lily, Flogos, and Aaron, the Ogdoadic King. So this isn't the greatest of openings, again, but we're going to show you what you can do here. Seeing as we haven't got a lot of options, what we're actually going to do is we're going to use our Ogdoadic Water Lily to start off by sending our Kierce directly to the grave. Now we don't get anything out of our Kierce just yet, but don't worry, we're going to get something out of our Kierce. Now we're actually going to discard our Nunu to send from deck to grave our Now, or Nauya. And then we are actually also going to normal summon our Ogdoadic Boundless. As I say, these normal summon in this deck, not super important, so it's not the end of the world sort of burning it in this situation. Now we're going to use our Kierce to tribute off our Flogos and special summon our Nauya, so we're summoning them both in defense. Nauya's effect will go off, letting us search out our Ogdoadic Hollow. And we can now actually discard our Ogdoadic King to add back our Boundless. At this point, we're going to tribute off our Kierce and our Nauya for our Ogdoadic King. Then we're going to set our Ogdoadic Hollow, and we're going to set our Super Polymerization. At this point, if our opponent puts... Before we end our turn, we're actually also going to special summon from our grave our Nunu. At this point, we're in an interesting place. Not necessarily where we want to be, but it could be worse. If our opponent was to send a card from field to grave, we can actually trigger our Ogdoadic King to let us search our deck. So we would probably search for either another Nauya or a Nunu, depending on what we felt we needed. I would probably go for the Nunu, just because it would let me put Ogdoadic Queen in grave on my next turn. Also, we can activate Ogdoadic Hollow and send our Nunu to grave, letting us take something out of our opponent's grave and put it on our field until the end of the turn. And also, if our opponent was playing dark monsters, well, we could activate Super Poly pitching off our Flogos, and super polying off their stuff. So as you can see, this can be an interesting deck. It can do a lot of interesting things. It doesn't have too hard a time getting to its boss monsters, so long as you can get New Nauya or Snake Rain in your hand. If you have Snake Rain in your hand, though, you're probably going full combo, ending on not 1, but 2 or 3 boss monsters, which will definitely put your opponent on their back heels. Especially if you manage to get yourself the royal pair of the Ogdoadic King and Ogdoadic Queen on the field at the same time. The two of them just feed off of each other so well, what with King's discard potentially fueling Queen's recursion, and with Queen's sending potentially fueling King's search. That all being said, I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Make sure you leave us a like, leave us a comment, leave us a subscribe, and if you want to see a purer variant of this that doesn't use Lair of Darkness to just slow your opponent down and make Super Poly a viable thing, make sure that you hit that bell notification, guys. I want to make sure you don't miss next week's profile, which is a pure Ogdoadic build that actually features another royal pair. That being said, make sure you leave us a like, leave us a comment, leave us a subscribe, and I will see you guys at the next video.